Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going on a deep dive, and I'm super excited about this one. We're diving into the life of Sister Maria Antonia,
Oh, yeah, she's amazing.
a Brazilian nun who said she had a truly special bond with her guardian angel.
A really unique relationship, yeah.
We're going to be looking at her autobiography, Under Angel Wings, and it just gives us a fascinating look into a life that was really intertwined with, the spiritual world.
Absolutely.
What I find just like so captivating is how these experiences that she had shaped her faith from when she was really little.
Yeah.
And then that eventually led her to dedicate her life to God. What about you? What do you find most interesting about guardian angels?
I think it's an idea that really resonates with a lot of people. This idea that there's like a protector, a companion,
Yeah,
assigned by God to watch over us and guide us. And this is especially true, I think, for Catholics,
right.
where the belief in guardian angels is so deeply rooted.
Absolutely. And Sister Maria Antonia's story brings this belief to life, so vividly. Like, for example, her very first encounter with her guardian angel, she was just 5,
Oh, wow.
and she was terrified by all the masked people during Carnival. And she got separated from her family.
Oh, no.
And this, like, big masked man, he grabs her hand, and she was just petrified.
That's like a primal fear right there. A child lost in all that chaos. It's scary.
Totally. And right in that moment, like, sheer terror, she senses this presence. But she doesn't actually realize it's her guardian angel until later.
Interesting.
Yeah, she called him her new friend, and he's just this constant in her life. He's not just comforting her, though. He's actually guiding her to make good choices. Do you remember that story about her packing for a seaside vacation?
Oh, yeah.
And she wants to bring her crucifix.
And instead of her toys.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, like, pure expression of faith. Like, even as a young girl,
Yeah.
she knew how important it was to keep, Christ close. I mean, it reminds me of us as Catholics when we carry our rosaries or our medals. It's like this tangible, physical reminder.
Of her faith.
It is interesting, though, that she felt like she had to bring the crucifix with her.
Yeah.
Like, almost like she was afraid that Jesus wouldn't be there with her otherwise. I don't know. What do you think about that?
That's really interesting. I think it speaks to this deep longing that she had to be close to Jesus.
Yeah.
A longing that just seems to grow stronger as she gets older. I think it's something that a lot of us, we can relate to, that yearning.
Definitely. And this new friend, he also steps in when Cece's tempted to do something wrong. There's that story about the peaches in the orchard, where she's about to take one.
Yeah.
But she feels her guardian angel physically stopping her, which is kind of a wild thought. Do you think that these interventions, were they like actually physical actions or more like an internal thing, like her moral compass sort of waking up? Ooh, that's such a good question. I mean, Sister Maria Antonia describes these as like totally real experiences.
Right.
But it could be that, her guardian angel's guidance came through in a way that like made sense to her as a kid.
Right.
But regardless, it shows just how important our guardian angels are.
Yeah.
Helping us figure out right from wrong, even from a really young age.
For sure. And then there's that incident where her friend breaks her glass and then lies about it.
Oh.
And Cece is ready to get back at her.
Oh, yeah.
But her guardian angel stops her and says, "Your poor companion has committed 2 big sins." So it's like he's teaching her not just about being honest, but also about forgiveness.
Exactly.
It's a huge part of our faith.
A core tenet. It's guiding her toward like a much deeper understanding of God's mercy.
Yeah.
And how we're called to, show that same mercy to other people, which can be hard, let's be honest.
It is tough.
But it's like the heart of Christian life.
It is. It's interesting, too, how her guardian angel really stressed modesty.
Yeah.
Like there's all these times where he's like, guiding her behavior, reminding her to think about her posture and how she's dressed, even when she's by herself.
Wow.
So, I mean, do you think modesty is really just about outward appearances, or is it something deeper?
Modesty. Modesty is complicated, and honestly, I think it gets misinterpreted a lot.
Yeah.
It's not just about covering up. It's about this internal state of being humble and respecting ourselves and others. It's about recognizing how sacred the body is. Like, it's a temple of the Holy Spirit.
That's a really beautiful way to put it. And it seems like Sister Maria Antonia's guardian angel, he was helping her understand this from a very young age.
Yeah.
It's all building up to a really crucial time in her life, her first communion.
Yeah.
This was huge for her. Like, it marked this deepening in her relationship with Jesus.
It's incredibly moving when she describes receiving the Eucharist for the first time. It's like she talks about feeling Jesus' presence inside of her
Hmm.
in a way that you could almost touch, like experiencing this union that goes way beyond, just a physical.
Right. And it's during this time that she makes a vow to never sin,
Wow.
a promise that came out of just like immense love for Jesus. What do you think made her make such a big oath? And what can we learn from, that kind of dedication?
It really makes you think about how deep her faith was and like her desire for holiness. This oath wasn't just about, not doing bad stuff. It was about trying to be completely united with God.
Yeah.
It's something you see a lot in the lives of saints, that yearning.
It's incredible, especially at such a young age.
Exactly.
Makes you wonder, is that kind of absolute vow even really possible for, us regular humans?
Right.
We all mess up, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the church does teach that we're all sinners. We all need God's grace. So maybe her oath wasn't so much about being perfect,
Yeah.
but more about showing like a radical commitment to following Jesus, like with her whole heart.
It really shows how strong love can be, how it can really change you. And speaking of powerful love, there's that story about Cyprian, the older man that she was friends with who had never been baptized.
Oh, yeah, that one. It's a really good example of just how innocent and pure her faith was. When she found out that Cyprian had never been baptized, like never received that sacrament, she was just so determined
Right.
to, get him ready for it.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it. A 10-year-old girl
I know.
teaching an old man about faith and then performing the baptism herself. I mean, it brings up a lot of questions, right? Yeah. About whether it was actually a real baptism or not. But it just shows how strong her belief was.
Hmm.
What do you think about it all, especially knowing how central baptism is to Catholicism?
Well, it's definitely not your typical situation.
No.
I'm sure theologians would have a field day with this one.
Oh, for sure.
But, what really gets me is how good her intentions were. Her wanting to share her faith with someone she cared about. And Cyprian, he's crying tears of joy. You can tell he received it with, like, so much gratitude.
And it's really interesting that he died later that same day.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any, deeper meaning to him passing away so soon after that, baptism?
Who knows for sure? But it does add this whole other layer to the story. It almost feels like maybe he was waiting for that moment of grace
Yeah.
before he could go to heaven.
It really reminds you that God works in ways that we don't always understand.
Mm.
And sometimes, he uses the most unexpected people to touch other people's lives. Like a young girl with a pure heart.
Mm.
And Cece's guardian angel, he keeps playing this big role in her spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of stories about him that are a little hard to wrap your head around at first. They really highlight how important modesty is, even in situations that you wouldn't think are a big deal.
Uh-huh.
Like there's one where her angel blocks her from seeing people swimming on the beach.
Oh, wow.
And even some scenes in movies. It makes you think, how do you balance that, these interventions with free will?
Huh, that's a good point.
It is a little confusing, right?
Yeah.
You could definitely see it as being controlling or even a bit too much. But I wonder if it's more about trying to help her develop like an inner sensitivity to protect herself from things that could, maybe be harmful or distract her from God.
Yeah.
Almost like a way of protecting her senses, but on a spiritual level.
I like that. It's not about taking away her freedom.
no.
It's about trying to help her have a pure heart and mind
Yeah.
so she can see the world through the lens of faith.
Right. It's about realizing how sacred our bodies are and that we need to protect them. It makes me think of how our faith emphasizes things like fasting and abstinence.
Oh, yeah.
People often don't understand, but they're really meant to make us stronger spiritually and bring us closer to God.
You got it. It's about making sure our desires are lined up with what God wants, cleaning up our hearts so we can really experience his love fully. And it seems like that's exactly what Sister Maria Antonia's guardian angel was leading her towards.
These stories about her guardian angel, like shielding her from certain things, it makes you wonder about the line between the physical world and the spiritual one.
Mm-hmm.
If those were really physical actions, it seems like our guardian angels can actually interact with our world
Yeah.
in ways that we don't quite get. What are your thoughts on that?
It's one of those things that's really hard to fully grasp, but it shows how connected the seen and unseen worlds are.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that, yeah, we have bodies, but we're also spiritual beings.
Right.
And everything we do has consequences here and in eternity.
Wow.
And our guardian angels, they're there with us every step of the way, helping us figure it all out.
It's incredible to think about, this constant back and forth between what's earthly and what's divine. It makes me wonder, as we learn more about Sister Maria Antonia, if her experiences can teach us anything about how to be more aware of our own guardian angels.
I think that's a really great goal, and her story really highlights how important it is to have faith like a child, to
Yeah.
be full of wonder, and to be open to how grace works in our lives.
Right.
That's what allowed her to see amazing things in the ordinary stuff.
And speaking of amazing things, what we're going to talk about next takes it to a whole other level. We're going beyond, angels stepping in and getting into Sister Maria Antonia's super personal, almost tangible relationship with Jesus. It's the kind of spiritual closeness that many of us hope for. Before we jump into that, I want to hear from you, our listeners. What parts of Sister Maria Antonia's story really stick with you? What questions have come up for you as we've gone through her journey so far? Sister Maria Antonia's life is just like full of these moments that make you think, wow, and want to look inward. As we go deeper into her spiritual journey, we find something really extraordinary, this incredibly strong connection she had with Jesus.
It went beyond simple devotion.
Yeah.
It was like mystical.
A real union. It's something I think a lot of us crave.
Oh, yeah. That feeling of truly being close to Christ.
And Sister Maria Antonia, after her first communion especially, she talked about experiencing Jesus' presence in a way that was so personal,
Yeah.
almost like she could physically feel it.
It wasn't about visions or anything like that.
No.
It was internal.
Right.
This unshakable feeling that he was with her.
Exactly. She wrote about it as like two souls becoming one soul, two hearts beating as one. It's like that mystical idea of being united with God.
Yes. Which is a key part of how Catholics understand the Eucharist.
And for her, this wasn't just a passing feeling. It was like this constant awareness of Jesus living inside her that brought her strength and joy and just shaped her whole view of life.
It's clear that being so connected to Christ, it fueled her spiritual journey. It gave her that bravery to deal with tough times and the strength to keep going.
Right.
But even someone as devoted as Sister Maria Antonia, she still had her struggles.
Yeah.
Times of doubt and what some call the dark night of the soul.
That part makes her feel so real, so human.
Yeah.
It reminds us that faith is not always about feeling good or having all the answers. It's about believing in God even when we don't feel him.
Especially then.
It's during those really dark times that our faith gets tested the most.
Absolutely.
And what Sister Maria Antonia went through shows us how important it is to never give up, to hold on to hope when we feel lost.
You got it.
Even though her story is extraordinary, especially with the mystical parts, it ultimately gives us a guide for our own spiritual lives.
For sure.
It reminds us that growing closer to Christ, it takes a lifetime. And it has ups and downs, times of pure joy and times of wrestling with doubts.
It's a journey that asks us to have that same childlike wonder that Sister Maria Antonia had,
Yeah.
to be open to finding God in surprising places. It tells us to listen for those little nudges of grace,
Right.
to pay attention to our guardian angels,
Yes.
and to strive for that closeness with Christ that goes beyond what our human minds can grasp.
It's been an incredible journey learning about Sister Maria Antonia. Her life makes us think about the unseen and really work on our relationship with God. What stands out to you the most from her story? And how can her experiences help you see your own spiritual path in a new way? Maybe it's a call to pay more attention to what your guardian angel is telling you, or to really connect with Christ in the Eucharist. Whatever it is, let Sister Maria Antonia's life be a light for you as you journey toward God. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.